Welcome back to Tired Conquest. We have quite the story to share with you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Tonight we're going to explore a story so wonderfully absurd, so delightfully impossible, that it might just be the perfect companion for your journey into sleep. What would happen if kangaroos decided they'd had enough of being just another Australian curiosity? What if these bouncing marsupials possessed intelligence far beyond what we ever imagined? And what if one particular kangaroo had dreams bigger than the vast outback itself? This is the story of Rocco, a kangaroo whose ambitions would reshape the entire planet in the most unexpected way possible. But before we dive into his extraordinary tale, let me paint you a picture of how this all began, because sometimes the most incredible journeys start in the most ordinary places. Deep in the heart of Australia, where the red dirt stretches endlessly toward horizons that shimmer with heat, lived a kangaroo named Rocco. Now, Rocco wasn't your typical marsupial. While his fellow kangaroos spent their days hopping lazily between patches of grass, munching contentedly, and occasionally boxing with each other for entertainment, Rocco had developed what could only be described as an unusual habit. He watched humans. Every morning, as the sun painted the sky in soft pastels, Rocco would position himself behind a cluster of eucalyptus trees near the old mining road. There he would observe the peculiar, two-legged creatures as they went about their daily routines. He watched them build structures, operate strange mechanical beasts with round feet, and most fascinating of all, he watched them organize themselves into complex social hierarchies. The other kangaroos thought Rocco was quite mad. His mother, a dignified female named Matilda, would often shake her head and mutter about how her son spent far too much time thinking and not nearly enough time eating. His father, a massive red kangaroo called Thunder, believed that all this watching and thinking was making Rocco soft. But Rocco paid them no mind. You see, Rocco had begun to notice patterns in human behaviour that intrigued him beyond measure. These creatures seemed to have conquered their environment through something that had nothing to do with physical strength or speed. They used tools, yes, but more importantly, they used coordination. They worked together in ways that seemed almost magical to a creature accustomed to the simple life of hop, eat, sleep, repeat. One particularly warm afternoon, as Rocco crouched behind his usual observation post, he witnessed something that would change everything. A group of human workers was attempting to move an enormous boulder that had fallen across their precious road. Individually, none of them could budge the massive stone. But working together, using levers and ropes and coordinated effort, they managed to shift the boulder completely out of the way. That night, as Rocco lay on his back gazing up at the countless stars scattered across the desert sky, an idea began to form in his mind. An idea so audacious, so completely ridiculous that it made him sit up with excitement. What if kangaroos could learn to work together like humans did? What if they could organize themselves, use tools, and coordinate their efforts toward a common goal? But Rocco's imagination didn't stop there. As he continued to stare at those twinkling stars, his thoughts grew more elaborate, more wonderfully absurd. What if kangaroos didn't just learn to work together? What if they became so good at it that they could outdo humans at their own game? The next morning brought an opportunity that seemed almost too perfect to be real. Rocco discovered that a small group of tourists had left behind some rather interesting items after their camping trip the night before. Among the forgotten objects were several books, a pair of binoculars, and most intriguingly, a laptop computer that had been left charging in their solar-powered camping setup. Now, you might wonder how a kangaroo could possibly operate a laptop computer. This is where our story takes its first delightful leap into the realm of the impossible. Rocco, driven by curiosity and an inexplicable intuition, began experimenting with the device. His large paws, surprisingly dexterous when motivated, managed to navigate the strange glowing screen. What Rocco discovered in that laptop changed his perspective On everything he found videos of human cities, with their towering structures and complex transportation systems. He saw images of human governments, with their elaborate ceremonies and organizational structures. Most fascinating of all, he discovered documentaries about animal behavior, including several programs about his own species. As Rocco absorbed this information over the following weeks, returning to the abandoned laptop whenever the tourists didn't return for it, his grand plan began to take shape. The humans, he realized, had achieved dominance not through superior physical abilities, but through superior organization and the accumulation of knowledge. Kangaroos, Rocco reasoned, had several natural advantages that humans lacked. They were incredibly strong, capable of traveling at remarkable speeds, and possessed an innate understanding of the Australian landscape that no human could match. All they needed was organization, knowledge, and perhaps most importantly, a leader with vision. Rocco spent the next several months developing what he privately called the Great Hop Forward. This was his master plan for kangaroo advancement, and it was beautifully, ridiculously ambitious. Phase 1 involved educating his fellow kangaroos about the wider world beyond their immediate territory. Phase 2 called for the development of kangaroo-specific tools and technologies. Phase 3, the most audacious part of the plan, involved nothing less than the establishment of a kangaroo civilization that would eventually encompass the entire Australian continent. The first challenge was convincing other kangaroos that his plan had merit. Rocco began with his own family, sharing his observations about human behaviour and his theories about kangaroo potential. His mother Matilda listened politely, but suggested that perhaps Rocco should spend more time finding a nice female kangaroo to settle down. With his father, Thunder was more direct, recommending a good boxing match to clear Rocco's head of all these strange ideas. But Rocco persevered. He began approaching other kangaroos in the area, sharing his vision of a coordinated kangaroo society. Most thought he was simply sun-addled, a victim of spending too much time in the desert heat. However, a few younger kangaroos found his ideas intriguing. There was Stella, a clever female who had always seemed frustrated by the limited scope of traditional kangaroo life. There was Boomer, a large male who possessed natural leadership qualities, but had never found an outlet for his ambitions. And there was Penny, a small but remarkably intelligent kangaroo who seemed to understand Rocco's vision better than anyone. This small group became Rocco's inner circle, his cabinet of advisors, in what would eventually become something far more significant than any of them initially imagined. They began meeting secretly in a hidden grove of trees, discussing strategies and plans that grew more elaborate with each gathering. The breakthrough came when Rocco proposed that they conduct a test of his theories. He suggested that their small group attempt to solve a problem that had been plaguing the local kangaroo community for months. A fence erected by human farmers had blocked access to a particularly rich feeding ground, forcing kangaroos to travel much farther for adequate grazing. Working together, using principles of coordination and tool use that Rocco had observed in humans, the group managed to create a solution that amazed even themselves. They discovered that by working in coordinated teams, some kangaroos could distract the farmers, while others used fallen branches to create makeshift ramps over the fence. Within a single afternoon, they had established a permanent solution that allowed all the local kangaroos access to the forbidden grazing land. Word of this success spread quickly through the kangaroo community, and suddenly Rocco's ideas didn't seem quite so ridiculous anymore. Encouraged by this victory, Rocco decided it was time to expand his vision beyond simple problem solving. He began what he called the Great Education Initiative, teaching other kangaroos about the world beyond their immediate environment. Using the knowledge he had gained from the abandoned laptop, Rocco shared information about geography, weather patterns, and most importantly, human organizational structures. The kangaroos proved to be surprisingly quick learners. Stella developed an impressive understanding of logistics, figuring out how to coordinate food gathering across multiple territories. Boomer discovered he had a natural talent for what humans might call diplomacy, successfully negotiating agreements between different kangaroo groups. Penny, meanwhile, became fascinated with human technology and began experimenting with ways to adapt various tools for kangaroo use. As winter approached, Rocco's growing movement faced its first major test. A severe drought had made food scarce across the region, and traditionally, this would have meant fierce competition between different kangaroo groups. Instead, Rocco proposed something unprecedented, a coordinated response to the crisis. Under his leadership, the kangaroos organised themselves into specialised teams. Some groups focused on scouting for new water sources, while others concentrated on identifying areas where food might be more abundant. A communication network was established, with kangaroos positioned at regular intervals across the territory to relay information about conditions and discoveries. The results were remarkable. Not only did the organised kangaroos survive the drought more successfully than their uncoordinated neighbours, but they actually thrived. Their systematic approach to resource management allowed them to build up reserves and establish contingency plans that would serve them well in future challenges. News of the kangaroos' unusual behaviour began to attract attention from the human world. Scientists started arriving to study what they described as unprecedented social organisation among the local marsupial population. Wildlife documentarians set up cameras to capture this extraordinary phenomenon. Government officials began discussing the implications of what appeared to be rapidly evolving animal intelligence. But Rocco was far from finished with his grand plan. As his movement grew to include hundreds of kangaroos from across the region, he began implementing the next phase of his strategy. He established what he called the Council of Hops, a governing body made up of the most capable kangaroos from different areas. Each council member was responsible for overseeing specific aspects of their growing civilization: food production, territory management, education, and external relations. The kangaroos began developing their own crude but effective tools. They learned to use rocks as hammers and sharp stones as cutting implements. They discovered how to weave grass and small branches into containers for carrying water and food. Most impressively, they developed a system of symbols scratched into trees and rocks that served as their first written language. Penny's fascination with human technology led to some particularly amusing innovations. She figured out how to operate simple mechanical devices, and under her guidance, the kangaroos learned to use abandoned human equipment for their own purposes. Old wheelbarrows became mobile food storage units. Discarded pipes were repurposed as communication tubes for sending messages across long distances. Even broken-down vehicles were stripped for useful parts that could be incorporated into kangaroo infrastructure. As the first year of organised kangaroo society drew to a close, Rocco realised that his movement had achieved something unprecedented in the animal kingdom. They had created a functioning civilization, complete with government, technology, and culture. But his ambitions extended far beyond their current territory. Rocco began sending expeditions to contact kangaroo populations in distant areas, spreading his message of organisation and cooperation. These missionary groups carried with them the knowledge and techniques that had proven so successful, along with offers of alliance and mutual support. The response was overwhelmingly positive, as kangaroos across Australia discovered that life could be far more interesting and rewarding than the traditional cycle of hopping, grazing, and sleeping. Within 2 years, Rocco's influence had spread across most of the Australian continent. What had started as a small group of curious kangaroos had evolved into a vast network of interconnected communities, all working together toward common goals. They had developed trade relationships, exchanging resources and knowledge across hundreds of miles. They had established a primitive but effective postal system, with messages carried by relay teams of fast-hopping couriers. The human world watched in fascination and growing concern as kangaroo society became increasingly sophisticated. reports emerged of kangaroos using tools, building structures, and engaging in what could only be described as agriculture. Some humans found the development delightful and heartwarming. Others worried about the implications of sharing a continent with an increasingly intelligent and organised animal population. Rocco, now recognised as the undisputed leader of what the media had dubbed the Kangaroo Commonwealth, decided it was time for the most audacious phase of his plan. He announced the establishment of the first official Kangaroo Kingdom, complete with formal borders, a constitution, and diplomatic relations with the outside world. The coronation ceremony was held in the heart of the outback, attended by thousands of kangaroos from across the continent. Rocco, wearing a crown woven from eucalyptus leaves and adorned with colourful stones, officially became King Rocco I, sovereign of all kangaroos and protector of the Great Hop. The new kingdom established its capital city, which the kangaroos named Hopsburg, built around a natural amphitheatre where the rocky landscape formed perfect terraces for kangaroo gatherings. The city featured residential areas organised by family groups, commercial districts where kangaroos could trade goods and services, and even entertainment venues where evening gatherings featured jumping competitions and storytelling. Human governments found themselves in the unprecedented position of having to decide how to respond to a formal request for diplomatic recognition from a nation of kangaroos. Some countries embraced the novelty, establishing trade agreements for the unique goods produced by kangaroo craftsmen. Others remained sceptical, unsure how to reconcile their traditional views of animals with the reality of an organised marsupial society. But King Rocco was not content to simply coexist with the human world. His ultimate vision involved nothing less than demonstrating that kangaroos could not only match human achievements, but exceed them. Under his leadership, the Kangaroo Kingdom began developing innovations that left human observers astounded. They created an ingenious transportation network based on their natural hopping abilities, establishing relay stations across the continent that allowed for incredibly rapid movement of kangaroos, goods, and information. They developed architectural techniques specifically suited to their physiology, building structures that were both functional and beautiful while requiring none of the heavy machinery that humans relied upon. Perhaps most impressively, they established what became known as the Hop Exchange, a sophisticated economic system that allowed for complex trade relationships, not just within the kingdom, but with selected human communities willing to recognize kangaroo currency. As our story draws toward its conclusion for tonight, picture King Rocco standing on the highest point in Hopsburg, looking out over a kingdom that had grown beyond his wildest dreams. The sun is setting over the outback, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, and thousands of kangaroos are going about their evening routines in the city below. Children are playing organised games in designated recreational areas, while their parents attend evening council meetings or continue their work in the various industries that now form the backbone of kangaroo civilization. In the distance, trade caravans are arriving from distant territories, their pouches full of goods and their heads full of news from the far reaches of the kingdom. What started as one curious kangaroo's observations of human behaviour had transformed into something magnificent and completely absurd. A thriving civilization that proved that with enough imagination, cooperation, and determination, even the most impossible dreams could become reality. And as you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps you can imagine yourself visiting this wonderful kingdom, where kangaroos have built something extraordinary in the heart of Australia, where creativity and cooperation have triumphed over convention, and where the impossible has become not just possible, but perfectly, delightfully real. The success of the Kangaroo Kingdom attracted attention from unexpected corners of the world. News crews arrived from distant continents, broadcasting live reports about the remarkable marsupial civilization that had emerged in the Australian outback. Scientists published papers with titles like Unprecedented Cognitive Evolution in Macropodidae and the socio-economic implications of organised marsupial society. But King Rocco had grown tired of being studied like a curiosity. His vision had always extended beyond simply impressing the human world. He wanted to demonstrate that kangaroos could create something truly superior to human civilization, something that would make the two-legged creatures realise they had been thinking about intelligence and society in entirely the wrong way. This ambition led to what historians would later call the Great Innovation Period. King Rocco established the Royal Academy of Hopping Sciences, where the brightest kangaroos from across the kingdom gathered to solve problems that had puzzled even human researchers for decades. The academy was housed in a magnificent structure built entirely from woven grass and carefully shaped mud, its spiral towers rising impossibly high into the desert sky. Stella, who had been appointed as the kingdom's Minister of Logistics, made the first breakthrough. She developed what became known as the bounce theory, a revolutionary approach to energy conservation that utilised the natural elasticity of kangaroo tendons. By perfecting their hopping technique and coordinating their movements with mathematical precision, groups of kangaroos discovered they could travel vast distances while actually expending less energy than they used in traditional random hopping. This discovery transformed not just transportation within the kingdom, but the entire kangaroo understanding of physics. Teams of kangaroos began conducting experiments that would have made human scientists weep with envy. They developed methods for measuring wind patterns using coordinated jumping formations. They created early warning systems for weather changes based on the collective sensory abilities of organised kangaroo groups. Boomer, now serving as the kingdom's foreign minister, negotiated what became known as the Treaty of Mutual Bewilderment with several human governments. The agreement stipulated that humans would provide certain manufactured goods in exchange for kangaroo innovations in sustainable agriculture and water management. The kangaroos had developed remarkable techniques for desert farming, using their powerful legs to dig precise irrigation channels and their natural understanding of Australian ecology to create thriving gardens in previously barren areas. Meanwhile, Penny had established the Department of Technological Adaptation, where kangaroos worked tirelessly to modify human inventions for marsupial use. Her team created the first kangaroo-operated vehicles, bizarre contraptions that looked like a cross between a pogo stick and a small aircraft. These devices allowed kangaroos to achieve unprecedented speeds and heights, making them the envy of human pilots who struggled to match their aerial maneuvers. The kingdom's cultural achievements were equally impressive. Kangaroo poets began composing epic verses in their new written language, creating literature that celebrated the beauty of coordinated movement and the philosophy of collective achievement. Their plays, performed in natural amphitheatres, carved into hillsides, told stories of individual kangaroos who discovered their true potential through cooperation and shared purpose. Music flourished as well, with kangaroos developing percussion instruments made from hollow logs and taut animal hides. Their concerts featured hundreds of performers creating rhythms by coordinating their hopping patterns, producing sounds that resonated across the desert landscape like thunder. Human musicians who heard these performances described them as unlike anything in terrestrial music, combining the precision of a symphony orchestra with the raw power of geological forces. The kingdom's educational system became a model that attracted study delegations from around the world. Young kangaroos learned not just practical skills like advanced hopping techniques and tool use, but also philosophy, mathematics, and what they called interspecies relations. The curriculum emphasized creative problem solving and collaborative thinking, producing graduates who could adapt to challenges that would have baffled their ancestors. As the kingdom entered its 5th year of existence, King Rocco announced his most ambitious project yet, the construction of the Great Hop, a massive architectural wonder that would serve as both the kingdom's new capital and a demonstration of kangaroo engineering capabilities that would surpass anything humans had ever built. The Great Hop was designed as a series of interconnected domes and towers that spiraled upward in a pattern that mimicked the trajectory of a perfect kangaroo leap. The structure would be built entirely using materials native to Australia and construction techniques that took advantage of kangaroo physical abilities rather than relying on heavy machinery. Thousands of kangaroos volunteered for the construction project, which became less like traditional building and more like an elaborate dance. Teams of kangaroos would hop in synchronized patterns, carrying materials to precise locations and assembling components with a grace and efficiency that left human observers speechless. The construction process itself became a form of performance art, with tourists traveling from around the world just to watch kangaroos build their magnificent city. The central tower of the Great Hop rose nearly 1,000 feet into the air, its walls covered in intricate patterns that told the story of the kingdom's founding and celebrated the achievements of its citizens. Inside, spiral ramps allowed kangaroos to reach any level of the structure in a few powerful bounds, while observation decks provided spectacular views of the surrounding landscape. The residential areas of the Great Hop were marvels of adaptive architecture. Each dwelling was designed to accommodate the unique needs of kangaroo families, with high ceilings, reinforced floors that could withstand enthusiastic hopping, and storage areas perfectly sized for the various goods produced by the kingdom's thriving economy. The commercial districts featured the world's first kangaroo-operated markets, where merchants displayed their wares on elevated platforms that could only be reached by hopping. The entertainment quarter included theatres, sports arenas designed for competitive hopping events, and venues for the increasingly popular kangaroo stand-up comedy scene, where performers delivered jokes while bouncing rhythmically on stage. At the heart of the Great Hop stood the Royal Palace, King Rocco's residence, and the seat of kangaroo government. The palace was designed as a perfect fusion of natural beauty and architectural innovation, with living walls of carefully cultivated plants and water features that created a cooling microclimate in the desert heat. The throne room was perhaps the most magnificent space in the entire structure. King Rocco's throne was carved from a single piece of red sandstone and positioned at the center of a circular chamber with walls that curved upward to form a dome. The acoustics of the room were so perfect that the king could address large gatherings without raising his voice. His words carried clearly to every corner of the space. As news of the Great Hop's completion spread around the world, human leaders began requesting formal visits to the Kangaroo Kingdom. Presidents and prime ministers arrived with elaborate diplomatic entourages, eager to tour the remarkable city and meet with King Rocco to discuss matters of mutual interest. These diplomatic visits led to increasingly complex international relationships. The Kangaroo Kingdom established trade partnerships with dozens of human nations, exchanging their unique innovations for goods and services they couldn't produce themselves. Kangaroo agricultural techniques helped combat desertification in several countries, while their transportation methods inspired new approaches to urban planning in major human cities. The kingdom's influence extended into unexpected areas of human society. Fashion designers began incorporating kangaroo-inspired elements into their collections, creating clothing that celebrated movement and flexibility. Architects studied kangaroo building techniques to develop more sustainable construction methods. Even human athletes began training with kangaroo coaches, learning to improve their jumping and coordination abilities. But perhaps the most significant impact of the Kangaroo Kingdom was philosophical. The sight of an entire species transforming itself through cooperation and shared vision challenged fundamental human assumptions about intelligence, society, and the nature of civilization itself. Universities established new academic departments devoted to studying kangaroo culture and its implications for understanding consciousness and social organization. And so, as we reach the end of our delightfully absurd tale, King Rocco stands triumphant atop his magnificent great hop, ruler of a kingdom that began with nothing more than one curious kangaroo's observations and boundless imagination. What started as a simple dream of cooperation became a civilization that redefined what was possible, proving that sometimes the most ridiculous ideas can hop their way into extraordinary reality-sweet dreams. And may your own impossible dreams bounce as high as Rocco's did.